Hello and welcome once again to another episode of the Kate and Eric Show podcast, brought to you by faith, family, and friends. So this week, hopefully you've had a great week. Appreciate everyone who listens, anybody who likes, subscribes, and shares. I really appreciate it. We're getting out there. It's slow but steady, but that's what won the race, right? It's the slow and steady tortoise instead of the fast hare. But anyway, so I'd just like to thank everybody for listening to the show. Any new listeners, appreciate it. And of course, everybody who listens, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. If you want more of this content, if you'd like to see my handsome face, you can go to Facebook. I have a Facebook page, X, TikTok, YouTube, True Social, Kate and Eric Show on all of those. So today, of course, we get into we'll get into sports here a little bit, more on Israel. Mike Johnson, who is our new Speaker of the House, there are some things that he said that are great. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but there's actually something that I agree with Hilary Clinton on. And it's making me question what's the real deal going on here, but... And then the son of a Hamas founder speaks out against Hamas. So we've got all that coming up. First, we'll get into the sports here. Congratulations, since I do have a lot of listeners here in the DFW area. Congratulations to the Texas Rangers on their first ever World Series win. They won 5-0 last night. I will be honest, I probably watched... I don't know, 5 minutes of all the games. I kept up with the scores, but I didn't really watch much. And I figured something like that was going to happen with the Rangers and the Diamondbacks, because you're not going to get like the big markets up east or out west. You know, maybe there might be some fans. I believe I don't know if I said this last week, but, yeah, so it turns out actually that this was the least watched World Series in quite some time. So it kind of sucks. But me being a baseball fan, I kept up with it, but I did not watch very much. But congratulations to the Texas Rangers, as this is coming from a Houston Astro fan. And I was sitting there thinking last night, I was like, if we would have just beaten the stinking Rangers, we would have gotten our third World Series in a row. And, gotten there, obviously, and then won it, because the Rangers handled the Diamondbacks quite handsomely, 4-1, and won the series that way. So it's a little frustrating that they didn't win. But anyway, so congratulations. I've seen some moving videos of lifelong Ranger fans who... are, they're obviously emotional about it. I know I was last year when the Astros won it last year, and then in 2017, it's always emotional when you see that. But I feel like, well, you just seen the Astros win, like, all the time now. But, so what? It never gets old to sit there and have that feeling of, even though none of the fans, which is kind of funny, I've seen a bunch of, we did it. Did you, though? Did you really do anything? I mean, you cheered them on, but there was nothing that we actually can do to, change the outcome of the games. But anyway, it's fun. So congratulations to the Rangers. Baseball season is now officially over. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens next year. The Astros, like I said last week, Dusty Baker has retired, so we'll be looking for a new manager, and there'll be all kinds of fun off-season changes happen. So, congratulations to them. And then, like I said last week, I actually traveled down to Austin last Saturday to go see BYU play Texas. And I met my dad, my uncle, my cousin, my brother, and my sister-in-law, all down there to watch the game. They went down the night before because I had to work, and then my daughter had a volleyball game Friday evening, and I didn't get home until, I don't know, like 9 o'clock, 9:30, something like that, after all that. And I was, they went down there like during the afternoon of Friday, and then, but I drove down which is, if you're not familiar with, from Dallas to from Dallas to the DFW to Austin. It's about 3 hours, a little over 3 hours to down to Austin. You just kind of go down 35, go through Waco and Temple, and anyway. But because we had rain and I woke up and it was like 57 degrees, I looked at the weather in Austin, it was like 80 degrees. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna wear shorts, but I get outside Saturday morning and I'm like, it's freezing cold. It's actually cold here in Dallas. It actually has been cold. We're not 110 anymore, which is great. But anyway, so I drove down there, and I'm not gonna do that again. I'm not gonna drive down there the day of and then come back the same day and then watch the game. It was a much smarter idea to drive down there the night before because I don't know, my legs were just killing me. I just was like ready to get out of the car. It was just me, so I was driving down. I watched the FSU game, or most of it, on the drive down there. FSU crushed Wake Forest like 42-16 or something like that. But the game was great. That stadium, DK Royal Stadium in Texas, there is amazing. It seats somewhere between like over 100,000 people, and there was actually quite a few BYU fans. I was actually kind of surprised. There was the BYU section we were sitting in, and then there was a whole bunch scattered throughout the stadium. Obviously, it was the vast majority of it was burnt orange since it's in Texas, and man, it was a cool. I felt bad because I like both the teams, so I was kind of cheering for both at the same time. But the rest of everybody else with me they're not Texas fans, and they were strictly BYU. And it was not so much, and I felt bad for my dad. He just looked absolutely miserable because it was like 80 degrees. And the only respite that we got was when clouds came over and covered the sun, and they were like, okay, just stay there, please, just stay there. But of course it didn't, and I got a little burned. But anyway, it was a great experience. It was fun to go down there. And then the next day, guess what happens in Austin? There was a big Palestinian protest going on. So yeah, that's awesome. I'll get into that here a little bit with our colleges. But so that's it was fun. It was fun to drive down there. It's a great school. It was a great game. The score makes it look worse than it actually was, 35-6. But it was just it was a fun experience. But let's move on to some other things here. I can go into the NFL. The Niners are just making me mad. They're 5-3. They started off hot 5-0, and then now they're dropped to 5-3. They've dropped 3 straight. So hopefully they can get their butts in gear here and fix things around. We got Philadelphia 7-1. NFC South is not very good, 4-4. I'm just looking at it right now. Detroit 6-2. Kansas City, or Taylor Swift's team. Taylor Swift, we just call them the Swifties. They are 6-2. Jacksonville 6-2. And anyway, so that's kind of the update. I know there's NHL and NBA, but that is something that I don't really follow very much, so it's kind of hard to keep up with that. So anyway, so let's get into this. Let's get into all this. That's probably enough sports, about 10 minutes worth of sports. But our new Speaker of the House, I kind of want to go over some clips here that he has said, so we can kind of get to know him. We got to get to know him. And some of the things that he has said. This is, I believe, right after being voted in. So I want to get to that here just a second.
25 years, Kelly. She's not here. We couldn't get a flight in time. This happened sort of suddenly. But we're going to celebrate soon. She spent the last couple of weeks on her knees in prayer to the Lord. And we stand at a very dangerous time. I'm stating the obvious. We all know that. The world is in turmoil. But a strong America is good for the entire world. We're only 247 years into this grand experiment. We don't know how long it will last. But we do know that the founders told us to take good care of it. I want to tell all my colleagues here what I told the Republicans in that room last night. I don't believe there are any coincidences in a matter like this. I believe that Scripture, the Bible, is very clear that God is the one that raises up those in authority. He raised up each of you. All of us. And I believe that God has ordained and allowed each one of us to be brought here for this specific moment in this time. This is my belief. I believe that each one of us has a huge responsibility today to use the gifts that God has given us to serve the extraordinary people of this great country, and they deserve it. And to ensure that our republic remains standing as the great beacon of light and hope and freedom in a world that desperately needs it. That our national motto, "In God We Trust," was adorned above this rostrum. And if you look at the little guide that they give tourists and constituents who come and visit the house, if you turn in there to about page 14 in the middle of that guide, it tells you the history of this. And it says very simply, these words were placed here above us. This motto was placed here as a rebuke of the Cold War era philosophy of the Soviet Union. That philosophy was Marxism and communism, which begins with the premise that there is no God. This is a critical distinction. America is the only nation in the world that is founded upon a creed. And he said it's listed with almost theological lucidity in the Declaration of Independence. What is our creed? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, not born equal, created equal. And they are endowed by the same inalienable rights, with the same inalienable rights: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. That is the creed that has animated our nation since its founding, that has made us the great nation that we are. And we're in a time of extraordinary crisis right now. And the world needs us to be strong. They need us to remember our creed and our conceit to you all. I think it's really quintessentially the core principles of our nation. I boil them down to individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and human dignity. Those are the foundations that made us the extraordinary nation that we are. And you and I today are the stewards of those principles. The things that have made us the freest, most powerful, most successful nation in the history of the world. The things that have made us truly exceptional. But I've made a commitment to my colleagues here that this speaker's office is going to be known for decentralizing the power here. And I want to make this commitment to you, to my colleagues here and on the other side of the aisle as well. My office is going to be known for trust and transparency and accountability, for good stewardship of the people's treasure, for the honesty and integrity that is incumbent upon us, all of us, here in the people's house. Our system of government is not a perfect system. It's got a lot of challenges, but it is still the best one in the world, and we have an opportunity to preserve it. And we want our allies around the world to know that this body of lawmakers is reporting again to our duty stations. Let the enemies of freedom around the world hear us loud and clear. The People's House is back in business.
I like it. I like what he said. Of course, you have probably, you'll have those on the left who are like, well, he's just a Christian nationalist. He's just a religious zealot. He's just blah, 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 blah. Well, honestly, that's kind of what we need nowadays. We need more religion. We need more turning to God, because if we don't, look at it. You flounder around. You don't know where you're going. Look at, there's... I saw this thing on the reason that one of the reasons the Texas Rangers won is because they did not have a Pride Night. So every other team did, and every other team did not win the World Series. But just kind of an interesting observance that people noticed. But yeah, we do have to return back to God. I like what he said there. And then, all right, Mike, well, let's stop the spending then. Let's stop the ridiculous spending that's going on. So that's just one thing. I do like what he says. Just great. I think hopefully he will be a great speaker. Oh, and then one thing I did forget. I can't believe I forgot this. But as I look at some of the things I'm going to play later. But Matthew Perry died. That was just very shocking. We were driving, speaking of the BYU game, we were driving back when my sister-in-law read in the car that Matthew Perry had died, and we're both, everybody was like, "What is going on?" My brother didn't really watch the show, Friends, so that's, I don't know. I don't think he really knew who he was, but but for a lot of people, my wife, I didn't really watch. I will honestly say I have not watched every single episode. Of course, I've seen the show, a whole bunch of times, but I have not actually sat down and watched it. I think me, my wife, and I will probably sit down and watch. Friends. There's like 10 seasons of it on HBO Max or Max Plus or whatever the crap they call it. But yeah, just absolutely sad. Here's one thing that because there's all kinds of Friends clips that I could have pulled, but and all over social media there's Friends clips everywhere, which was appropriate. There was a whole bunch of people put flowers and other things. I believe next to that shot of the supposed cafe or their apartment or one of the things there, they put a whole bunch of flowers there in New York City. But one of the things that I pulled from him is something that he said. I'm guessing fairly recently, and I'll just like to play this in kind of honor and respect for him.
Guy, I don't want Friends to be the first thing that's mentioned. I want that to be the first thing that's mentioned, and I'm going to live the rest of my life proving that. I would like to be remembered as somebody who lived well, loved well, was a seeker. His paramount thing is that he wants to help people.
Just a short little clip there to pay tribute to Matthew Perry there. Just absolutely sad. I have seen that there are different conspiracies coming out about him, how he was some kind of sacrifice, or that he knew something about, he was going to come out about something with the Epstein Island thing. And, this is, if those are things, I wouldn't doubt it with today's world that something happened to him, but it was sad. I guess I don't know if it's the official report or I haven't seen anything updated or new, but that he drowned in his hot tub at his house alone. And there's different clips, which is really sad, of him on the show Friends saying, "I'm gonna die alone," or something like that, and it's just really sad. But I was gonna say that earlier, but with everything else going on, got to it now though. So anyway, we'll get back to Mike Johnson here, but yeah, just really sad about Matthew Perry. Suzanne Summers too. I don't remember if I've said this before, but just really kind of sad, very sad. Let's get into this other stuff here, because there's another clip of Mike Johnson, but it's a little long. What the heck? So he's not interviewing, but he's coming against or going. There's a congressional hearing with Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary, who's an absolute just little weasel of a guy. But here's an exchange with them.
Last year and explained then that it had already become crystal clear that you are either unable or unwilling to do your job. But as has been said here today now, based upon the facts and the evidence, we've concluded you're doing this intentionally. On the website of DHS, it describes the mission. It says the Department of Homeland Security secures the nation's air, land, and sea borders to prevent illegal activity and is focused on securing our borders and keeping our communities safe. Sir, you're the 7th Secretary of Homeland Security in charge of the 3rd largest federal department in the United States and the largest immigration system in the world. You are given immense power and an absolutely critical responsibility. Of all of our federal agencies, sir, I think yours is the one that has the smallest margin of error. Because if the Secretary of Homeland Security is unable or unwilling to give these answers, to perform his duties and accomplish his mission, Crime surges, chaos ensues, and innocent people die. Mr. Mayorkas, that is exactly what is happening on your watch. All of us have been down to the border. We've seen this with our own eyes, and we are outraged. And so are our constituents and all law-abiding citizens in this country. They're outraged because of your deliberate and defiant policies. These are the documented facts. We have a literal invasion of lawless masses flooding over our border from more than 160 countries. The safety and security of the American people are being directly threatened, and innocent children, sir, are being abducted, assaulted, raped, and murdered by human traffickers. Countless numbers of known terrorists and vicious gang members are clearly coming across our border and making their way into our communities all over the country. The precious treasure of American taxpayers is being used to incentivize and reward all this because illegals are given food, clothing, health care, cell phones, welfare benefits, and we also, the taxpayers, pay for ghost flights and bus tickets so they can send them around and secretly transfer these folks into all of our communities across the country. It is your policies, and because of them, that our entire country is becoming a crime scene. And we are dealing with a humanitarian disaster that would have been unimaginable just 3 or 4 years ago. Because of your policies, the drug cartels are making billions of dollars and building their empires, and they are drowning our streets in fentanyl and other deadly substances, and that has made drug overdoses, as you know now, the #1 cause of death for Americans ages 18 to 45. Our brave Border Patrol and law enforcement agencies and officers are completely overwhelmed, and they are personally endangered. And the rule of law is being trampled underfoot. And the stability and the very sovereignty of our nation is being threatened like never before. I have a long list of questions I was anxious to ask you today, but I've been watching you. You know, you've been on Capitol Hill for 3 days now. You've been in 3 committees. You're very, you have an extraordinary talent, I think, for evading questions, and you've provided answers that are not accurate, and that's documented. You're insulting the intelligence of the American people, and you're subjecting them to extraordinary danger. This is not a game. It's been detailed over and over this week, and here again today. You have presided over the greatest immigration catastrophe in American history, and it's an objective truth that you have helped design and implement this system. You took your oath of office in February last year, and by the end of the first year, ICE recorded the highest number of border crossings and the lowest number of deportations in history. Fact. You have stated publicly in direct defiance of our laws that, quote, being here illegally by itself is not enough to be removed, unquote. If DHS does not deport illegals, that is, apprehend and quickly remove people who cross into our country illegally, then we have no border security at all. We all know that after Title 42 is repealed, 18,000 immigrants a day are going to result coming over that border. It's going to be a total collapse of our operational control. If people are allowed to simply walk in here and live and work and collect taxpayer-funded benefits and assistance for years upon years and maybe permanently, then in a very short period of time, we'll be totally overwhelmed. We'll be crushed by the sheer numbers and the weight of illegal immigration, and there will no longer be any border, any security here, any sovereignty at all. We won't have a country. I called for your resignation in July of last year and explained then that it had already become crystal clear that you were either unable or unwilling to do your job. But as has been said here today now, based upon the facts and the evidence, we've concluded you're doing this intentionally. It is despicable. I believe these are impeachable offenses. And Mr. Secretary, my advice to you is to begin your search for a different career field very soon, because there will be an election and the American people will let their voices be heard on this, and we will be taking the majority. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from 133 members of Congress to the Secretary expressing our concern that his actions in opening our border and inaction in enforcing our laws are endangering American lives.
Wow. Woo! Oh, man, that was great. Oh, you went scorched earth on Mayorkas. Holy crap, that was great. Congratulations there, Mike. Good job. That was good. So, yeah, he's our new Speaker of the House. Great. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's secure our country. Secure the borders. So there we go. I like him. I think he's good. I think he's better than Kevin McCarthy. So that's great. So yeah, it was just amazing. Just amazing. But in light of what, the other things that are going on in the world, there's little clips there of the new Secretary or Speaker of the House. But of course, we have the Israel-Hamas-Palestine war going on, and yeah, I've got a clip here of Hilary Clinton where I actually kind of agree with her. I'm like, wait a minute, something's wrong. This can't be right. I can't be agreeing with her. But yeah, I'll get to that here in a second. But I would also like to play, and I can't. Did I play that last? I don't believe I did. No, because it didn't come out. But what Benjamin Netanyahu said about what's going on, and everybody, I mean, there's just so much crap with this going on with all the pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist rallies across the world that is just amazing. And here in our own country, here in the United States, and I've said this, and if you've listened to the last 3 weeks, you're probably like, oh my gosh, she's going to talk about Israel again. But this is important, biblically important. If you read the Bible at all, the world is going to be against Israel. We're seeing prophecy being fulfilled right before our very eyes, where good is now evil, evil is now good. The world is going to reunite against Israel and the Jews, and we can see that happening again. It's just, I believe I did not mention this last week because I forgot there was a story I was going to talk about last week, but I used to work for EMS, a transfer company in Houston. That's why I love the Astros, is because I used to live there. But there was a patient that we ended up transporting. I worked for a transfer service, so meaning that I would we would pick up patients from one place, like their home or facility, and take them to a higher skill facility, like a hospital or something like that. And one of the patients I remember picking up, I put this on my social medias, the Kate and Eric Show. I put that on there because I forgot to talk about it last week because there was so much other stuff. But we ended up transporting a patient who was a Holocaust survivor. And she asked me, I forget why we were transporting her, and that's not the important part. But she asked me, because we found out she was a Holocaust survivor, and we were just both, me and my partner. It just sounds bizarre in today's world to say that, but I don't know, the other medic on the truck, there we go, maybe I could say that. But we found out she was a Holocaust survivor, and we were sitting there waiting to get checked in with the nurse, and then she sat there and she asked us, because we found out, we were just like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry, grateful that she survived. But she asked us a very poignant question, and I was in my mid-20s, I guess, and I didn't really have an answer for her. Maybe it was in my 30s. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But she asked us, how did the world allow, speaking of the Holocaust, how did the world allow that to happen? And I didn't have an answer for her then. The answer that I gave was, this is kind of caught me off guard. I was like, I don't know. I don't know how that happened. But today I can see how that happened. Today I can see how a certain narrative, propaganda, that the Jews are somehow these evil people and that they need to be exterminated, can be perpetrated on a population. I mean, look at what's going on around the world, and especially here in the United States. I look around and I see college campuses where there are just anti-Semitic protests going on, where Jews feel threatened here in America. And so I would probably say to her today that the reason that happened is because, for one, people they don't want to push up against the machine, if you call it that. They don't want to push up against it because they were probably afraid for their own lives during that time. And they were propagandized that everything was the Jews' fault, that the Jews did this, that it was their fault that these things happened. And so, coming off, I went to the World or the Holocaust Museum when I was a missionary in Washington, D.C., that they have a Holocaust Smithsonian. If you ever get a chance to go there, it's really, it's very sobering, and it's very humbling to see that. And I understood, because they show a bunch of videos and footage of what had happened to Germany after World War One, and how Hitler became, got into power. And I understood kind of how he got into, excuse me, how he got into power, and how the people kind of like gravitated towards him, because he said all the right things. He said all the things that were like, hey, I'm going to end your suffering. Because they, Germany after World War One got hammered really, really, really bad. They had to pay for it all. Their economy was crap. And so he's like, I'm going to bring you out. I'm going to do all these things for you. And so, then the propaganda camp went out against, the Jews and everything. And they rounded up, the neighbor against their neighbors. And they rounded all these people up. And, back then there wasn't the social media. So all that, that didn't have, that wasn't seen throughout the world. So that's probably one reason why, because the world just didn't know. Until the soldiers came to these concentration camps and saw what was going on, then they figured out what was happening. But to the local person there in Europe, where in Germany or Poland or wherever these camps are or were, I just think that people just went along with what was going on. They realized they wanted to feel powerful, or they wanted to feel. They just didn't want to push up against things, and because they probably saw that where things were going. That I don't know if the SS was as powerful as it was at the end of the war as it was at the beginning. I don't think they rounded people up like that. But just today is just absolutely astounding that this is almost happening again. I mean, you have Hamas, which are backed by the Palestinians. Not all of them, I don't think. I had a good conversation with my sister-in-law on the way back here from from Austin, and she had lived in Israel for a few months, doing an exchange program, or a study over abroad, or whatever that's called. Anyway, that's not important. But anyway, she said that the Jews, the Palestinians, they all in Israel, they live together. They all live together. They live peacefully together. And it's just really, really disturbing, really, really sad that there are tons of people out there now that are just, this anti-Semitic crap's going on. It's almost like the BLM riots in 2020. That's kind of the same feeling, except maybe worse, because that was just here in America, obviously. But it's astounding to me that there is this much hate for a particular people just based on their belief system. I don't know. I obviously, because I don't support any of that crap, that I can't get my head around it. I don't understand how that is even possible. And then you have Jewish students in our own college and university campuses, especially these Ivy League schools. I'm not going to sit there and call them these higher levels of learning, and they're not, they look down on you. Oh, I went to an Ivy League school. They're not places of higher learning anymore. They're indoctrination academies. So there's an article I found here where college braces, this is from the Washington Post, college braces for anti-Semitism and violence. It's happening. Yes, because Jewish students are absolutely afraid. There are some that have been locked up in libraries to get away from these people. There's horrific things being said about them online. There are projections onto these college buildings that says, "Praise to be our martyrs." So what this says here, recent days have witnessed what Jewish students and watchdog groups describe as a raft of anti-Semitic incidents on college on college campuses. Jewish students at Cooper Union in New York City sheltered in a library as pro-Palestinian demonstrators banged on the glass walls of the building at a pro-Palestinian protest near Tulane University. At least 2 students were assaulted in a melee that began when someone tried to burn an Israeli flag. That's the other thing. They're burning Israeli and American flags here in America. I mean, if you don't like it here, go away. Leave. If you're here on a student visa and you're not an American, we should be able to just say, all right, you're done. Bye-bye. And an anonymous posters flooded a Cornell message board with threats prompting the school's president to alert the FBI. If you see a Jewish person on campus, follow them home and slit their throats, one message said. Another threatened to bring an assault rifle to campus and shoot all you pig Jews. Is that not hate speech? You know, I post stuff on TikTok, and they're just ridiculous with their stupid hate speech crap. I've posted a couple videos here recently. And they've been taken down. I posted one, and then it got taken down. I posted it again, it got taken down for supposed hate speech and other bull crap, but they don't give you an actual reason as to why. But it's just astounding. It is just absolutely, absolutely astounding. And then you've got the White House sitting there talking about, oh, we need to be careful and not get into Islamophobia. Oh, okay. Since the Muslims are the ones that are being threatened to slit their throats, follow them home, and kill them. Yeah, that's not happening. Because if it were, that would be plastered everywhere. It would be plastered everywhere. If there was a specific incident where that was going on, it would be everywhere. It has not happened, so it's not. It's just absolutely. So, you know, stand up for these people, because it's just absolutely disgusting what is going on. Actually, and there's a Bill Maher. I actually agree with him on a thing too. But here is what he had to say about what is going on. It's pretty funny, but this is what he had to say.
Very depressing week. I'm sure you saw Hamas, the terrorist group that runs Gaza, broke into Israel, killed over 1,300 people, men, women, and children, and then the college kids in America. What is going on? 34 Harvard Student Association signed a letter that basically threw their lot in with the killers. But there was a backlash because some CEOs said when these kids now go for a job, they're going to be blacklisted.
Good.
Then there's the Democratic Socialists of America. I wasn't aware of these people, but they exist, and I'm not sure I'm with them. The Connecticut chapter put out a statement. They said, no peace on stolen land. This is from Connecticut. It's not stolen land. Okay. Yes. And then I heard about this other person I was not aware of before. Porn star Mia Khalifa also rejoiced in the killing. I wonder if you know this, Mia, that if you tried to practice your trade in Gaza, I'm not sure they would give you a warm welcome. No, they would. You should be on fire, you nitwit.
So there's another clip where he just goes off and says, don't send your kids to schools. Don't send your kids to these campuses because they'll just be indoctrinated into anti-American and, you know, anti-Semitic. Just don't, no, like I said, in like elementary school, middle school, and high school, know what's going on in your kid's classroom. Yeah, know what's going on with the professors and these other, the universities around the country here, because yeah, they're just cesspools of rotten filth. Speaking of which, when I was in college, and I went to about a year at the University of Utah. Yes, I did actually go to the University of Utah. I don't know if I've said this before, but I did. Being a BYU fan, I did wear my BYU apparel and gear on campus up there, and it was kind of funny. But anyway, so I had a professor. Now, at the time, I was a bit shocked, and I didn't really know what to say at that time. And I don't know if he was going for some kind of a shock value or what, because I remember him specifically saying in one of my political science classes is that Hitler wasn't really a bad guy. I just remember him saying, I don't remember much ever after that, but that phrase just shocked the crap out of me. I'm like, what? What do you mean Hitler was a good guy? Um, being up there at the university, you're surrounded by liberal Democrat nincompoops, but yeah, I was quite shocked when he said. I don't remember what the conversation was afterwards. Sorry, that was kind of the end of the story. But I don't know if he really believed that or if he was just kind of going for the shock factor to provoke conversation, because we were discussing different political ideologies. La, la, la. But it was quite jarring, to say the least. He was like, yeah, Hitler, he wasn't really that bad of a guy. Okay. No, he just killed like 6 million people and enslaved most of Europe. But yeah, he wasn't a bad guy. And as a result of him, there were millions of other deaths, including Americans. But yeah, he wasn't a bad guy at all. But anyway, let's get to these last few little things here. There's some other stuff. Oh, I do want to get to this Hamas guy. Let's see. Let's get to this. Okay, this is another thing here on Secretary Mayorkas, the Department of Homeland Security. He's in front of another. He's getting roasted again. He just needs to quit and just say, okay, bye-bye. I suck at my job. The whole administration sucks at their jobs, and they just need to go home. Biden needs to go to Delaware. He can have his ice cream and whatever else, and then get his Depends changed. But this is what he was kind of. So after the horrible attacks of October 7th, an employee of the DHS posted some very disturbing things online, and this is. Well, I'll just let you listen.
Is this typical of people who work at DHS? This is an asylum and immigration officer who is posting these frankly pro-genocidal slogans and images on the day that Israelis are being slaughtered in their beds. What have you done about this?
4 things I'd like to say to you. Number one, your question suggests that that is emblematic of the men and women of the Department of Homeland Security is despicable.
I'm sorry, but what have you... This person works for the Department of Homeland Security. Have you fired her?
That was one of 4 answers.
Have you fired her?
One.
Have you fired her? Don't come to this hearing room when Israel has been invaded and Jewish students are barricaded in libraries in this country and cannot be escorted out because they are threatened for their lives. You have employees who are celebrating genocide, and you are saying it's despicable for me to ask the question? Has she been fired?
After the consumption,
After this, I like to speak.
So yeah, that's just after the secretary. After he's done, I would like to have some time. And this. I mean, it's a yes or no answer. Has she been fired? Yes or no? You don't need to go to a 4-point presentation of how stupid and inept and inadequate you are at your job. It's just yes or no. But that's the administration for you. They don't know how to answer yes or no questions directly like that. Here, let's get to this. Let's get to Benjamin Netanyahu, I said earlier, and then we'll get to Hillary, that I actually kind of agree with. So I'm questioning whether or not I'm right. But here we go.
I want to make clear Israel's position regarding a ceasefire. Just as the United States would not agree to a ceasefire after the bombing of Pearl Harbor or after the terrorist attack of 9/11, Israel will not agree to a cessation of hostilities with Hamas after the horrific attacks of October 7th. Calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, to surrender to terrorism, to surrender to barbarism. That will not happen. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bible says that there is a time for peace and a time for war. This is a time for war, a war for our common future. Today we draw a line between the forces of civilization and the forces of barbarism.
stand against the forces of barbarism until victory. I hope and pray that civilized nations everywhere will back this fight. Because Israel's fight is your fight. Because if Hamas and Iran's axis of evil win, you will be their next target.
Yep.
That's why Israel's victory will be your victory. But make no mistake, regardless of who stands with Israel, Israel will fight until this battle is won, and Israel will prevail. May God bless Israel, and may God bless all those who stand with Israel.
It's great. That's great. It's just amazing. You have all these people sitting there screaming and yelling, "Oh, ceasefire, ceasefire." I don't believe there were any ceasefires during World War II. We didn't try to sit there and have chats with Hitler or anybody else. We went in, we kicked ass, and we got out. We lost a lot of good men doing that. But this whole idea of just a ceasefire is a bit ridiculous, in my opinion. Because, they were attacked. 1,400 Jews were killed, along with others from other countries. And, that would be I've said this before, that would be the equivalent of about 50,000 Americans, population taking that into account. And people are out there wanting a ceasefire because Israel has responded back. Well, there's no way. After 9/11, there's no way we're going to let's just have a ceasefire. Or, after World War II, or, when Pearl Harbor happened, there's no way. I think we were a different people back then. We actually had a backbone. We didn't give in to terrorism or any of those other idiots. But I think they tell the job's done. Isn't that what Biden said about Ukraine? Oh, we're in it until the job is done. So I support Israel and their defense of their own lives, because that's what they're fighting for. So let me get to this Hilary clip, because I'm not entirely sure if I should agree with her. When I heard it, I was like, wait a minute. Well, this can't be her. This can't be Hillary Clinton talking about this. But it is. And so here we go.
People who are calling for a ceasefire now do not understand Hamas. That is not possible. It would be such a gift to Hamas, because they would spend whatever time there was a ceasefire in effect rebuilding their armaments, creating stronger positions to be able to fend off an eventual assault by the Israelis. So we're in a very different world. I don't think it had to be the world we're in, but that's where we are, and we've got to figure our way forward through it.
So I actually agree with her on that. If there is a ceasefire, the terrorists have time to kind of regroup and rearm themselves. So I would have to say that it's probably part of her it's partially her fault, though, is what's going on with the Obama administration and all that. So I would have to probably put some blame on that one with her. But other than that, I do agree with what she had to say, that a ceasefire would be bad for Israel and good for Hamas. So now I'm like, okay, there's something wrong. And then the one final thing is that the son of Hamas, one of their founders, I believe, I would like to play part of him. There's a big long clip, about 10 minutes, where he's interviewed with Piers Morgan that I'll probably upload to the socials. But here, let me just play this little shorter clip.
Easiest thing to do, just blame Israel. What's so-called occupation, which is non-existence. And I say non-existence because Palestinians have the opportunity of being independent, and Israel will definitely help them. Israel has no interest of controlling the Palestinians' lives. They don't take taxations from them. They don't need nothing from the Palestinian people. Actually, the Palestinian people take a lot from Israel, and Israel is willing to give more and more to help them on every level. Israel is not the enemy of the Palestinian people. Israel is not the enemy of the Arab people. Actually, Israel has the power to invade, destroy most of the Arab capitals in a matter of hours, if they want to, but they are not doing it. If the picture was the opposite, if any Arab country had the power Israel has, they wouldn't hesitate of destroying the state of Israel. Israel is always at defense.
That is for sure.
The world can go on of denying this reality and this truth, but we all will pay a price, and it's time for us to take responsibility, to choose, which side, and I'm not talking about taking side of Israel as a political regime, but taking the side of a successful model that respects the human dignity, respects the human rights, and open for all type of people. For so many people in the Arab world who don't have maybe the opportunity, and they have lots of things to lose if they say this truth, that no, we prefer democracy. The moment they say Israel, they are going to be labeled as traitors.
So that's great. Yeah, because Israel has very, if Israel was the problem and they were the ones being the aggressors, the West Bank, the Gaza Strip there, and probably a whole bunch more land would be theirs if they wanted it. Because the rulers of Palestine, Hamas, they are, I've seen here that they have millions of dollars, and then, your average Palestinian living in Gaza or the West Bank is dirt poor. So all the aid that is given to them somehow just, it's like it doesn't get to the people that it should. Kind of like what's going on in Ukraine. That's amazing how that happens. That money and things that are given to people for good and humanitarian doesn't seem to get there. It seems to go to other people to make them rich, and then they can live in like places like Dubai and Qatar and things like that. But anyway, that's the update for the world at the moment. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show, and if you like, you can please like, subscribe, share it with others, rate on iTunes and anywhere else, Spotify, and then more people will be able to see it, and the algorithm could do its fun little thing. And then if you want to see more, or I post videos, you can see my handsome face, go on to Facebook, X, TikTok. Then what else have we got here? YouTube and Truth Social. And I try to do my best to update all of them. Go there. TikTok and Facebook, X are the ones that I primarily do most of the stuff. But go there, Caden Eric Show, and you see more, have more experiences, and see more fun things. And but hopefully you enjoyed the show. Hopefully you have a great week. And I will talk with you next time. Bye-bye.